my coaching practice and my personal practice has really noticeably shifted over the years as I explore the most resourceful states of being available to move you into bringing about the changes you desire in your experience. Consciousness is all there is. It is what makes up our entire world, both of what we perceive as matter, material, and all that we perceive to be immaterial. It's all consciousness. And this is the premise of all my work. And the closest thing to consciousness in our experience is space. This is what all of your explorations will take you into, whether it's through meditation or any practice you've taken on that's geared towards you getting to know yourself, moves you into this spacious awareness that is so vast and so deep and so broad and so seemingly still that all you can really equate it to as far as our waking world is concerned is that it's like space. So I got to realizing in that recognition that the best way to move into a new reality, the best way to move yourself into organizing your world in a new way is to change the space that your consciousness right now resides in, to literally move yourself out of the space of identity that you currently hold, identity being the location that you're holding yourself in, and move into the space of the identity you want to be expressing, the space of the outcomes that you want to be expressing. And identity and outcomes are simultaneous in nature. They co-arise or co-occur together. Who you know yourself to be is what you experience as your waking experience. So a change of reality is really a change of identity. And you've come across this information over and over and over again. They've been phrased differently. They've been worded differently. But the essence of the message is that you have to change yourself in order to change the world. And that's a literal pointer, meaning you have to change the self that you're being, the interference pattern that you take to be who you are. That's what needs to change. So what's amazing about this subtle shift in understanding is how immediately you notice yourself being a different being altogether. You know, there's that great saying, I die daily, or I die before I die, pointing to once again the death of identity, the death of the self that you take to be, and the resurrection of something new, or the rebirth of something new, a new being altogether. And it's an amazing, subtle unfolding to observe. You're no longer affirming and remolding your current identity. You're moving out of it altogether into a new one. It's the difference between remodeling and renovating an old home to look like, you know, something new that you want to live in, and instead just going out and moving yourself into a brand new house that's exactly like the one that you want. One's an instant change or a more immediate change. The other is a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of movement. And you have to look at that. You have to look at those two options and see which one is more enjoyable for you to play with. You know, if the path of struggle and effort and work and hard work and all of that is your game, that's all great. If what you want to experience is more immediate, more easily accessible changes, then you want to play with the relocation of identity. There's that saying, and you've heard this in so many different contexts, that you can't put old wine in new bottles. And it's pointing to this practice we have currently of trying to fit our old identity, trying to take our old sense of self, trying to take this old interference pattern in the field of being and moving into this new desired space. It doesn't work, and it's too much work. If it works, it's because you put a lot of work into it. You put a lot of efforting and energy into it. It's a much slower process. A lot of the resistance, a lot of the struggle that you experience is because you're trying to take this old identity, this old pattern, and fit it into a new space of being, a new field of resonance. And there's a lot more adjusting and tweaking and retweaking in that process and practice. And it's not that that's not valid. That's just as equally as valid as what I've currently been playing with. It's just, which do you prefer to play with? That's what it comes down to. So there's this other way of completely changing the location of your consciousness and accessing the field, the actual space and resonance of the reality you prefer, and writing and authoring yourself out of that field directly. And that's what my coaching practice and my own personal practice in shifting through the worlds of waking reality has transformed into. And it's very interesting. It's very different. It's very direct. It's like a direct line into your own power to move through the world. It's a very different way of being in the world. So far, it's the best and most direct way of movement and consciousness I've discovered. And I say so far because everything's always evolving, everything's always changing and growing. But this has been really interesting in that there's just more immediate power and energy in it. And there's a more pointed awareness at work in it. When you play with the space of outcomes, when you play with the space of your desired outcomes rather than the content of your desired outcomes, shifting through your world becomes a completely different experience altogether. It's like we've moved from the model of transformation to this model of direct transportation. It's different and really neat. So I really invite anyone who takes on moving through their worlds in a conscious way, I really invite you to take on this slightly different way of approaching your shifts and your changes. Instead of engaging with the content, instead of engaging with the details, see what happens when you play around this space that contains those details. See what happens when you play around moving yourself into the space that contains the outcome. And notice how you experience that. Notice how you move through that. And notice how quickly you change the self that you're being as you source yourself from the field that you want to be in rather than the field you currently appear to be in. It's a different game. So for anyone wondering what one-on-one work with me is about right now, really this is the focus. I no longer really explore current patterns. I'm much more interested in just taking you into the space of the outcomes you prefer, taking you to the location of those outcomes and letting you play in that field and make that field your here and now. Like I said, it's just a different game altogether.